24% of parents actively talk to their kids about money. Talking about money is only taboo when you bring all the emotion with it.
Gen Z is lazy and doesn't want to work. Myth busted.
Myth busted. So the data says that Gen Z is motivated by different things.
You are allowing them to fail at home almost. We're still protecting them, but we're giving enough freedom on a leash to go experiment and see what happens.
Privilege is not something that I want to shy away from, but it's also something to be taken with great ownership and responsibility.
If you want to raise financially mature kids without entitlement, lock in on today's episode with Dr. Julia Myers. She's a highly sought after speaker, writer, and founder of Generational Wisdom, who's a leading expert on how to talk to kids about money, which we love. Julia has empowered hundreds of healthy, wealthy families to transform their money mindset and regain control over their generational wealth. Her thought leadership has made her widely regarded as a public speaker and advisor, helping families struggling with entitlement to experience clarity, discernment, and confidence through her generational wealth framework. She's also a quintessential working mom to 5 kids, ages 8 to 20. So welcome to the show, Julia.
Oh, well, hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor and a pleasure.
Yeah, and I'm so glad we connected. So you're one of our Brand Builders Group favorites. Love seeing your journey and how you've just built this business of a very big need. This is not something that you hear about every day. So you're definitely in a space that needs more voices. So thank you for doing that. But give me the backstory. How did you get to here? What was your career like before you did this? Give me the quick backstory.
Oh, well, thank you again for having me. And you said nobody's talking about it. And that's right. 24% of parents actively talk to their kids about money. So when I was raising my kids, I realized talking about money was something we did, and that was weird. It was not normal for my kids to be versed in, basic financial literacy. And what really brought about me pivoting from being a pharmacist and a healthcare leader was I had hit this level of financial independence and thought I had kind of checked all the boxes. I thought I had done everything right. Yeah. And then suddenly I had a retinal detachment. I lost the vision in my right eye. I lost the use of my right eye. And that required immediate surgical intervention. Well, during the consent forms, if you've ever had a surgical procedure, there's a lot of black and white mumbo jumbo. I'm in healthcare. I never read it. But all of a sudden I was the patient. And one of the questions at the very end was, how clearly can your family communicate your wishes? Wow. And it hit me that I think on paper, the trust is there, the estate's there, they knew all the numbers, but can they communicate my wishes? Hit me from a values place, hit me from am I blessing them or am I cursing them? Mm-hmm. Am I confident that they're going to know what our family was all about? And can that legacy live well beyond me and my money? Yeah. And that's how I turned to speaking. I turned physically, got clear on what I could do and what I couldn't do. Nobody wants a one-eyed pharmacist, I can tell you that. And then it basically allowed me to share my story to make generational wisdom the household term and not just generational wealth.
Love it. Ooh, that's so good. And it's just, again, I'm so excited for this conversation because the people need to know, the people need to make these changes. So I know sometimes there's a lot of common myths about what you do and generational wealth and just wealth building in general. And you gave me 2, and you said you can't just do one, but we got number 1, talking about money is taboo. And number 2, Gen Z is lazy and doesn't want to work. So fill me in on why these are big myths.
Got it. Well, I think talking about money is not taboo. It is one of the most important things about transitioning into adulthood, right? It's a tool. And we have to normalize the conversation because typically when I'm working with families or entering a room and I say I'm the money person, they cringe. Unless they're a financial advisor, they lean in and they're like, "Oh, what are we going to talk about?" Mm-hmm. And so I start with saying talking about money is only taboo when you bring all the emotion with it. Mm-hmm. You bring all of the feelings. Maybe it was shame. Maybe it was scarcity. Maybe it's that feeling that you told yourself money was. And then someday that story came true. Yeah. So it's a myth to say that we don't talk about money. I do think that it's important to create safe spaces and ways to have that conversation. It's not necessarily how much money do you make, right? Mm-hmm. That's typically the thing that we talk about. Sure. We ask the question, and my 8-year-old has asked me, well, what do you do, mommy, at work? Well, how much money do you make? Doing and making, those are equal, right? And unpacking, unlearning some of those behaviors we had even as a kid is really important. And so often I'm talking about money as that thing we use to show what we value, the thing we use to show what we value. And I compare money to our time and to our attention. We spend it in those ways. There's only so much of it. There are certain things we can do to either prioritize how we spend it, but I want to make it a non-emotional conversation. So I'm not sure how that goes at your household, but growing up, it was an emotionally charged conversation. And so when I realized that I was avoiding topics, it was because of what I brought to the conversation, not because it wasn't my responsibility as the parent to still have that conversation with my kids.
Yeah. So good. Okay. Talk to me about Gen Z is lazy and doesn't want to work. Myth busted.
Myth busted. So the data says that Gen Z is motivated by different things.
Yes.
So millennials are the ones that talk about fire. Boomers are the ones that talk about pensions. Gen Z are all about, I want balance and I want to be curious. They don't see money as the end all be all. Gen Z is often entering the workforce with a very, very different mindset.
Yeah.
They are seeing their parents that worked jobs or were paycheck to paycheck and said, I don't want anything to do with that.
Agreed.
And so what Gen Z is finding is that the lifestyle they want just has to match the income that they have. And a lot of Gen Zers are entering the workforce with a lot of debt or a lot of just low confidence in their ability to manage money. And so what I really have found in the data, so great research done by Jason Dorsey, Center for Generational Kinetics, is over 75% of Gen Zers never want to own real estate.
That's crazy. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And so again, it's not that they're lazy, it's that their lifestyle just wants to match with their income, and that alignment is so very different. And to them, it's not having the big house and the American dream and 2-car garage with dogs and kids. It's, I want to live where I want to live. And that means that I'm going to have to rent because that means that I'm not much closer to what I want to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to be connected to or tied down to a specific area. You know, the job duration is less than 5 years. Why would I buy a house if I'm going to be moving or relocating? And then they grew up with parents that had to deal with crazy interest rates on their mortgages. And so they're not seeing real estate necessarily as a tool and wealth building. They're seeing it as a hassle and a headache. Combine that with a lot of student debt, and they're like, what in the world do I ever want to retire for? Yeah. So they're coming from a place of, I don't know that I can ever retire. So I'm not lazy. I'm just not going to pick up overtime and work crazy hours like you Gen Xers and you millennials that are all on this FIRE movement. So myth debunked. Gen Z is not lazy. They just approach work and value their time way more than other generations.
Yeah, which it's so interesting when we study generations and how things kind of morph over time. But I think where they're coming, their perspective makes sense, right? With what the worldview that they have, I can understand why they think the way that they think. So good. So millennials work hard, Gen X works hard. We're building a nest egg. We're preparing our family for one day. What if this happens and I have a lump sum of money? How do we start to talk to kids about money? Like how do we prepare them? How early do we start? At what stage do we give different responsibilities? Like, how do you roadmap this as a parent?
Well, I would say the best time to start is when they're younger.
Yeah.
And if that means that they're young adults and already grown and you're listening to this, it's not too late. I've got a tool for you. Cool. So let's start with the younger ones first. And I say that the concept of money comes from a place of being a steward. And that's a big fancy word that basically means it's not yours and you don't get to keep it forever. It means that it passes through your hands. And when we think in an abundant way about money, it comes, it goes, we spend it, we earn it, we make it, we, invest it. And that concept of sharing starts at about 2.5, 3 years old. When you're in a conflict with your sibling or somebody that is in your friend group, you've got to figure out how to share. And so sometimes I even talk as early as 3 is a time that you can start talking about sharing. And we share our things. We share what we have in the service and then being generous for others. Yeah. It scares me when people say, well, once I have a certain amount of money, then I'll be generous. Then I'll give. I'm going to challenge anybody to say at any age with any income, my kids know it, that when they get birthday money, they get to give some away. What's really cool about that, though, is it's to their choice. It's to a place or a purpose or an organization or a person ringing a bell at a certain collection place. They get to choose where it goes, and it now puts them in the driver's seat of feeling empowered and confident. The data says 39% of young adults do not feel confident in their ability to manage their finances. These are our 20-year-olds in the workforce, and only 39% are feeling confident. So we can build confidence by teaching them how to share, be generous, be stewards, and that starts at an early age.
Yeah. Hey ladies, real quick, if you are looking for a mentor, I just wanted to remind you that I offer mentorship to entrepreneurs. So if you're someone who has a never-ending to-do list and you're spiraling out of control and feel like your business doesn't have a track plan, I want to work with you every single week for a month at a time. It's super simple, but I come from over 10 years of experience doing this myself, and now I'm willing to give that information back to people. So I've mentored real estate agents, I've mentored wedding photographers, I've mentored other business owners, and they've come from a place of overwhelm mostly, and they really just needed clarity and a couple of action steps to move the needle, and we've seen gigantic leaps and bounds in their business, like I can't even tell you. So if you're interested and you want to know what that looks like, I want you to go to marinatolentino.com, and there's a Calendly link there to do a 15-minute discovery call with me just to see if we're a good vibe check, to make sure we're on the same page, and I would love to work with you one-on-one to really boost your business to the next level. Let's dive back in. Is there a rule you give about like 30, 30, 30, or like how are we dividing up the money that we get for kids?
I think it has to do with the values you have behind it. And so when they're getting $10 and it's for their birthday, the last thing I want to do is make them go make $3.33 to give away. What I like to do is more of a 80-10-10. And I think that when you're younger, when your needs are being met, it's more fun when you can spend and you can see how it spends, and then it encourages you to do more. So I say you can spend 80%, you give 10%, and you save 10%. And that's a fairly straightforward way until you start making some money, until you're a teen. And then all of a sudden, all of your needs are now starting to become wants. And now I'm going to have you start saving for more so that you're paying for things, you have skin in the game when it comes to those things. As they get bigger, they eat more, and their electronics are way more expensive. So they get to be part of that solution as they get to be of able age to earn money.
Yeah, absolutely. So my 9-year-old is in this phase right now where he gets quite a bit of money gifts from family, but then also is wanting to work for more. And so he's doing chores around the house. What are some good jobs kids can do for money that you feel like what's appropriate ages?
Oh, I think that's a trick question because what the data says is that what we used to think of as an allowance and what I had growing up were chores, and they were physical things we did. It was things around the house, things around the yard, things with the siblings. Well, 80% of jobs today have nothing to do with your physical ability, and it's all cognitive. It's all mental.
Yeah.
So I really like incentivizing my kids and having them earn money by creating something that solves a problem or adding value to something. And so for me, my two favorite ways that are kind of outside the box that parents haven't heard of, I'm not going to tell you to mow the grass because sometimes you just got to get it done or you pay somebody to do it. But reading and watching TEDx talks. So
for that? Yeah.
I do. And they learn very quickly that effort matters more than outcome.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you have to finish the book, the TEDx or the whatever. However, I want you to tell me, what did you learn? How did it impact you? And what are those things that you're going to carry forward? Or what are those things you're like, that was entertaining and it's not really life-changing.
Yeah.
And so I bonus based on effort, or I will take away based on poor performance because I want to incentivize the behaviors of financially and independent, mature young adults. So even at 9, my kiddo, she's 8, but almost 9 next month. One of the first books that she read for money was Who Moved My Cheese?
Okay.
So Who Moved My Cheese is a really fun short book. It even has some pictures, which is kind of funny. And it's a great concept book because then you can start talking and have a dialogue about it. And she earned $5 and she's like, that's a $5 book. And then the teenagers from the room are like, wait a minute, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that was a $25 book. And I'm like, yeah, well, you're 8. You're not going to get all of the things from Rich Dad, Poor Dad just yet. So books. And then using the internet, using the tools we have for good.
Yeah.
YouTube gets a bad rap because of all the things. I think it's just because parents, we've delegated our parenting and we've maybe
Mhm.
checked out and said, YouTube, go, or
Yeah.
kids mode, go. Let's have them, sit with us. They get to
Mhm.
pick the topic. What do you want to learn about? Or how about let's see an
Yeah.
8-year-old give a TEDx talk and then we all talk about it. We all watch it together and we can dialogue from there. And then that's how they earn money is what's the problem you solved or how did you learn a new skill?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. And I think even just being problem solving awareness, right? Like if you're noticing this is an issue with your laundry, how can you solve the problem instead of me nagging you? Like let's think creatively out of the box, just with everyday life stuff. That's so, so good. And you're starting to plant so many good seeds at a young age. And again, it's just a matter of watching a video or reading an easy little book, but it's again, you're like habit stacking here and like slowly building this up. Super good. I love that perspective. And then what was I going to ask you?
I think we're going to talk about older. So say
Yes,
your
that's right.
kids are either no longer at home or they're not home for supper because they're out doing their own jobs or their own commitments. They just sleep here is sometimes what I like to say my teenagers do. I'm like, you just sleep here. You don't live here. I would say that as a family, it's never too late. However, if you've not talked about money, if you sit down at the table and say, we're going to have a money conversation, you're going to get eye rolls, you're going to get checkout.
Yeah.
It's not going to be engaging. I'm going to give you a pass to even talk about money at all the very, very first time. I'm going to give you a different question. I'm going to have you approach it in a different way.
Okay.
I'm going to have you as the parent who's never had or has avoided or just isn't confident with where you are in these
Mhm.
money conversations. Let's talk about our schedule.
Okay.
We schedule our time often in alignment with how we budget our money.
Mhm.
So the question I like parents to ask is, what does our schedule say we value as a family?
Ooh.
What
Mhm.
about our schedule says what we value as a family? And I think you can back into, well, here's where we spend time.
Yeah.
Is that either making us money or is that costing us money? Maybe it's extracurriculars, maybe it's entertainment, maybe it's food. All of those things can then back into different conversations. And if you're looking at your schedule and it's out of alignment with what you value, your budget probably is too. And
Mhm.
there are ways and bridges that we can do to back into getting it aligned with
Yeah.
what you really value as a family.
That's so good. Yeah. And I think it's just time is money also. So when you start to have that perspective and teaching them at that age when they're all about success and their worth starts to come from their achievement, it's like we can just slow down a little bit, backtrack and keep that big picture perspective. You can absolutely change the course of their early adulthood. That's absolutely huge. And when kids have this money, like when are we opening bank accounts for them? Do you have advice on like how they're managing the money? Are we investing it in stocks? Like how have you done this with your family?
Ooh, I will share what I've done personally. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial
Yeah, yeah.
advisor. In general, I say physical cash before digital.
Of course, yeah.
Many, many times I found that when my kids are counting the coins and they actually physically take it to the bank the first time, it's an emotional like thing. They
Mhm.
feel the weight of the coins, they smell it on their hands, and they're exchanging it at the bank for a little piece of paper.
Yep.
My 13-year-old even looked at me and goes, that's it? Like, that's it? Like, this is my whole piggy bank, right?
Yeah.
And if you've not done that experience with your kids, bring them into a bank. How many times do the tellers tell me, you're the first kid I've seen in 2 weeks come into a
Wow.
bank?
Wow.
So just physically in the different generations, how we bank is changing.
Yeah.
And I love that experience growing up of rolling coins. And that's a memory for me. And that's a habit that I want to carry on for them.
Yeah.
So physical before digital. Digital, give me 6 months of solid use with your debit card before you get even considering giving them a credit card, whether it's an
Yeah.
authorized user or it's their own card. When they turn 18, they can do a lot of things. And we need to make sure that they've got 6 solid months of solid debit card activity well before we do that.
That's
And then
good.
I say, before you buy assets, you get a pet that you have to pay for and you have to take care of. But then you want to start buying assets. Okay, now that's how we do it. So that's kind of the continuum.
Yeah.
And for me, once they take their physical money into the bank, we then transfer it over some of it. And we have what they call their savings and their investments. Because what we've identified usually in that middle school age is they have short term savings. Like I want to buy something that's $100. That's invested differently than maybe my long term savings.
Yeah.
They get on the app with us. They look, they see the numbers, they see the things move around. They get to pick and choose. Maybe if it's a couple direct stocks they're interested in, we'll let them run with it. It's a safe way to learn and a safe way to fail. That's the most important thing we can teach our kids is you don't learn from the textbook. I mean, you might learn the technicalities, but you don't learn your risk tolerance. You don't learn your approach to debt unless you've done it in a safe way. And you've maybe had a couple hard lessons too.
Yeah. Oh, so good. I love that. Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, and I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Work Like a Mother podcast. Real quick, I just want to remind you guys, if you are worried about missing an episode, you don't have to worry anymore because we are creating a weekly email that's going to go out automatically every single time there's a brand new episode. And this email is going to have everything you need to know about this week's featured guest. It's going to have all of the links and the resources that we're going to talk about in this episode. So you don't have to go around and fumble through the show notes, but it's going to be served in your inbox every single week. So if you guys want that access, be sure to click below one time in the show notes today, sign up for that email, and then you'll never have to worry about it in the future. And bonus, if you really love this, we'd love it if you share this with a friend. Give us a review on whatever platform you're listening to, and we'll continue to bring new episodes and new information that's going to help you level up your life every single week. I definitely had a debit card in high school, but wasn't really talked about at credit at all because my parents didn't use credit. So I went Wild West once I went to college and got into major trouble. So it's like, I love that you are allowing them to fail at home almost. Like we're still protecting them, but we're giving enough freedom on a leash to like go experiment and see what happens, but then helping them get through it too at the same time. I think that's so, so huge. Because once we're on the own, like it becomes secrecy, right? Like I'm ashamed of this. I don't want to talk about it. And then the hole gets bigger and bigger. So allowing them to learn is so, so big. So I want to kind of pivot into generational money management. So we're ready now. Like, let's say something happens, all of our money's in our trust, we're set to go. These kids now have the opportunity to have a lot of money passed down to them. And maybe we've set up some certain certifications that need to happen in order for them to get that money. How are we motivating them to not get it all at once? First of all, like there has to be some barriers, but then once they have the money, how to manage it? What advice do you have? And not be entitled and like just be bums.
Ooh, okay. So the three biggest things that the data says causes a loss of wealth in the generational transfer. So 70% of the time, it will be lost, spent, diluted in one generation. So what we leave our kids, 70% is gone. 90% will be gone by the grandkids.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be a statistic. You don't want to be a statistic. And so to do that, I say that the three reasons that it happens, I'm going to target. And I do that both in my estate plan and in my parenting style. So the first one is financial skills, not just literacy, but skills. We talked about that. The next one is clear goals and expectations. So I've seen expectations written into estate plans of you will graduate from college, not just go to college, but you will graduate from college. I've seen some as you will attend family functions and you will be in family pictures. Ooh. Okay, that's an expectation. But if you're not communicating about it, how are they going to know? And then some poor trustee is going to be navigating this on your behalf. That's like leaving your estate to the court. We don't want that. And then the final one really has to do with no ownership. The next generation needs to see this gift as a blessing and a head start in their purpose in life. It is not a golden ticket to a life on the beach. It is not something that they can just use up and then it'll be gone. It is something for them to steward and have responsibility with. So when they can take ownership, I have very clearly told my kids, it's not going to be equal. It will be aligned with your ability to manage what you have already. It is going to give you a little bit of a head start, but it is not going to get you all the way there. You have to find your purpose. You have to find your calling, and this money will help you do that.
Yeah.
Additionally, in our personal plan, half of what we are leaving goes away. That's going to our charity, my husband and I. Then when the kids get their parts, half of what they get has to go to their charity of choice.
Oh.
So they get to pick because it's super likely that they are going to be interested in different things, different causes, different experiences. And if they're invested and they see that as, wow, my parents left a gift that is going to keep giving. I now have this opportunity. A, I can't spend it. So you can see it grow as it grows in there, as it's being invested in this charity. But B, you now have So you can't find your purpose in life, you're going to be running that charity because that's going to be the money that you get to have a say in or a voice over. And then the rest, I think, is just going to be a head start. That, we can bless our kids with assets. We can bless our kids with education or those particular things that just help them find their purpose, develop skills, develop their talents, and serve the world in a bigger way. Privilege is not something that I want to shy away from, but it's also something to be taken with great ownership and responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. It's teaching a generation to be a caretaker of the things, of the assets and all of it. That's so good. And I think for so much of this, it's like, in order for us to teach our kids about money, we first have to be educated on it. And so even a lot of us today, millennials and all across the board, we're not as educated as we should be, right? We haven't had the time or made the time to really invest and learn it. So what are some resources you love for parents today to start and just kind of make sure they have their basic foundations and then maybe like level B of financial wellness?
Perfect. I love up level. That's such a brand builder's thing. Let's up level. I will say that even if you learned financial literacy when you were growing up and you were the expert at it, the rules of the game have changed. Online banking, cryptocurrency, digital transfers, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App didn't exist when we were learning financial literacy. So I want to give all the parents a pass who are like, I should know this. No, you shouldn't. Just like parenting, right? You weren't given the manual when they were born. You aren't given the bank register either. So I really, really like starting from a conservative place because it's hard to build wealth when you're in debt. So I'm a big fan of the baby steps, the Dave Ramsey. I think it's super easy to get caught up in a lot of the, I should be doing this or I should be doing that. Get the basics right. Save, spend, share, or save, spend, give, depending on how old you are. Because if I tell my 16-year-old to share, I'm going to get an eye roll. And so once you've elevated from that, I think it's exploring, what do you want to do to grow? What do you want to do to create more wealth, more assets, more value? And there's lots of vehicles to do that. Be curious and be cautious. And so some people say rich dad, poor dad and jump right into real estate. Some people say go into being your own business or your own boss. I think there are so many different ways and avenues that it's helpful to find a community or a place to create a safe space to have these conversations. These are first world, very blessed, privileged problems. It's not easy to talk about that on social media. It's not easy to be like, how are we doing this? Unless you want to be either sold to or taken advantage of. So one of the places that I like to hang out is a place called dinnertable.com. And it is a community of parents that are values-based parents interested in having different conversations around money, and it's values-based. So there's a home economy group. There are some that are just, how do we talk to our kids about lifestyle living? Because maybe they are nomadic and they don't have a home, but they want to teach their kids about different ways and different cultures and how you don't have credit scores in other countries, but you do here. Or you don't have mortgages in many other countries, but you do here. So learning from a global perspective, I think, is that next up level. We have this worldview of the American dream that I kind of want to shake up a little bit and say, there's more out there. And with that comes being curious and being cautious. Slower is not always a bad thing when it comes to making money. The largest amount of wealth was lost in the crypto stock exchange by the Gen Zers that didn't know what they were doing and had crazy risk tolerance, but couldn't afford to lose it.
Wow. I didn't know that. No, and it goes back to time is money, right? Like literally just for so much of it is start small and just keep going and don't stop going. That's all it is. And having the patience, knowing that it will eventually do its thing over time. But so many of us, I think, are just hesitant to even start just because of the lack of education. So they don't have confidence in the system. They don't have confidence or context around it. So one of the things I did with my sisters is we created a stock group just between us girls because we wanted to know what the guys were talking about. So we've been in this club now for 4 years. And I think we've all made about like $5,000 total over the last 3 years or whatever. But it's just, we're putting in $100 a month, each of us. And then once we have enough sum, we decide to invest in something and we study stocks independently. And I have learned so much in this group, but it's no dumb questions. We're literally like Googling words as we're having these meetings once a month. And so I just encourage anyone to like, if you can't find the group out there that you feel comfortable with, start it. Start it with your girlfriends, start it with whoever. But so I was so frustrated as a mom and a woman to be like, I'm left out of this whole world of finance. Like it's a dude's world. And I wanted to know what they were talking about. And I wanted to feel educated and empowered about it. And so I love all the resources you just shared. Absolutely. But it just starts with doing it. There's even things like Acorns app where it takes like the change off your dollar and starts investing it. Like you don't have to think about it and you can just be doing $100 a month somewhere. And so there's all kinds of things out there, but that's such good advice. Switching gears a little bit. So I asked you on the pre-show about self-care and how it means to you and how do you practice it? And you gave such a good answer. But you talked about having protected time for white space. So can you kind of fill me in on your dream day? How do you do this once a week?
Oh, yeah. So when I was working full-time in healthcare, I longed for a day off during the week because you're kind of always on. And when you're a mom, you are really always on. And for me, I figured out that I wanted to be back in control of my day. And the best way to do that was blocking time on my calendar. And if that means that it's 30 minutes, if it's 1 hour, I've worked up to one whole day a week. What I call a me day. And self-care for everybody looks a little different. I'm a doer and a thinker. And so I collect things all during the week. I'm like, oh, I could read that, or that would be really interesting. And I found that it was stressing me out if it was in my email inbox or if it was in my notebook. And I use my white space day to explore what I'm curious in. And my brain knows it's coming. So I'm able to put those ideas somewhere, but it doesn't distract me from the deep work that I need to be doing during the day. It also means that if I don't feel like doing anything, I don't have to. I don't have to answer to some of those typical things that happen during a day. And I would encourage everybody, find that white space hour. The goal and the status in life of I'm busy or I'm stressed out is what I equate to the saying, I'm broke and I don't have any money. Let's not do that. Let's not celebrate busy. Let's not celebrate broke. Let's celebrate wealth. Let's celebrate wisdom and white space.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that so much. And it's such a good reminder about the emails. I get so many newsletters that are all like girly fun things that I want to see. And right now it's all the gift guides, right? I just want 2 hours to like go shopping online for the family. You can just create a new folder in your inbox that's like me day or like whatever fun reads. And that way, when you're ready and you can sit down, it's like, okay, light the candle, have your drink or whatever, and just go to town on your emails. That sounds so fun. And so important. And so for people who are like, well, I don't have the freedom of doing that. Like I have to take care of the baby or my husband works all the time. What advice do you have for someone on creating that margin? Is there any tips you have for them?
I think that holding yourself accountable to everybody else means that you've got to hold yourself accountable to you. Mm-hmm. And if that's a limiting belief of I don't have time, you actually do have time. You are choosing to spend it in ways that maybe aren't giving you that payoff or that value. It's not bringing you joy. Yeah. Life happens sometimes. We've got to do that stuff that we don't like doing. Same with our budget. We got to spend money on things we don't like spending it on. Mm-hmm. But that's part of being an adult and picking between the hard. So it's hard to not have you time. It's also hard to, not take care of yourself and then feel like you're missing out. So choose your hard. Say no more than you say yes. Try it. No is a complete sentence. And especially around the holidays, I really want to encourage you to do those things that fill you up, not just what you've always done.
Yeah. So good. Oh my gosh, we could keep talking forever. So for someone who wants to do more, they're like, okay, Julia, I subscribe to everything you just told me. I want to level up my life. What do they do next?
So check out my website, juliamyers.com, Myers. So that's kind of the East Coast spelling of Myers. And if you grab my resource, so juliamyers.com, it's 5 financial conversation starters. Mm-hmm. Any age, you can sit around the table. You can really unpack some of those more thought-provoking questions from a values-based approach. Start having that conversation. And then that'll jump you on my newsletter and my email list, and that'll keep you up to date on all the places that I'm speaking, all the podcasts that I'm guesting on, and also just allow you to directly communicate with me. I want to know what resonated. What did you try that worked? More importantly, what did you try that didn't work? Because often all we know as parents is what our experiences were as kids, what happens in the 4 walls of our house, and maybe to an extent what happens at school or the playground or the sports field. But beyond that, I want to be connected. And I want to find community and resources just like what you did with your sisters. I think that's so wonderful. Let's create that connection together.
Yeah. So good. Well, I end every episode with a fun rapid fire. So what is your favorite Starbucks order?
Starbucks pumpkin chai with blonde roast.
Ooh, yum. Okay. What do you make for dinner if it's last minute?
Breakfast.
Ooh, breakfast or dinner. Can't go wrong
Breakfast.
with
We
eggs.
always have eggs and we always have pancake mix.
There you go. Favorite department of Target, and do you have a favorite designer?
Oh, Department of Target. I'm going to say the makeup because I'm really into skincare now that I'm over 40 and I am trying all the things. So I am liking anything from
Yeah.
Ulta
Now
at
that they've got
Target or
Ulta,
Sephora at Target. Yes.
give us a book or a podcast you'd recommend to our audience and why.
Ooh. I can't say this one, can I? Because I really like this one. I love women empowerment. And so if you are in the professional development space or personal growth space, I'm really liking Powerhouse Women
Yeah.
by Lindsay Schwartz. And I'm really liking the Jasmine Star Show by Jasmine Star. So those are two places for kind of personal development. And it's just a really great place to learn and feel supported by really strong, powerful, amazing, and beautiful women.
Yeah. And just a little side tip. So I love to listen to those too, because I feel like sometimes it feels very lonely in your circle of as a high performer, right? And then you can tune in and be like, oh, there's one. She exists out there. I'm not the only one that's working really hard to build my life. Yeah. Those are great. TikTok or Instagram?
LinkedIn.
Yep.
I'm such a nerd.
Wait, so LinkedIn is like a secret world to me. I just cannot get it. So you're just posting articles, or how are you really engaging there?
It is kind of like Facebook, but in the business world, and you don't talk about what you eat.
Yeah.
But you're the best way to
ideas, opinions.
Yeah, kind of, perspectives you can post. I write articles that can be kind of shared, kind of like newsletters. And it's a neat way to meet people with maybe credentialed or professional or traditional training that are exploring entrepreneurship. Or maybe they're like secretly like in their entrepreneurship era, but they're not ready to jump ship yet. And so there are a lot of us out there that are posting like, hey, there's life after corporate, or there's life after your degree. You don't have to lose that identity, but you do have to find yourself in this process.
Ooh, okay. You just gave me a whole new outlook on LinkedIn. That's exciting.
When people look for jobs, or they're like hashtag searching or hashtag hiring, but I think it can be so much more than that in a place that can be so hard, especially in a traditional male dominated field that is the workforce. I've really found some neat people that I've only met through LinkedIn digitally and have never met in person. And they're pretty cool.
That's amazing. No, I need to do more. And especially now that they have a video feature, we can share little snippets from podcasts and just spread the word that we're having these conversations. So good. And then where can people find you online?
I think my website, juliamyers.com. And then you can follow me on all the socials, and LinkedIn is where I show up the most.
Amazing. Well, we'll be sure to have all of that in the description. And then we have a newsletter that goes out every Tuesday with all the things that you shared. So the children's book and the other things, we'll have those all linked. But thank you so much for your time, Julia. This was so good. And I'm encouraged to keep going and to just keep loving on our children and teaching them in the ways that we wish we would have been taught. That's all we can do right now. And it's so important.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like to say that the prescription for generational wealth is wisdom. And we want our kids to have it better than what we had it. And we now have the power to do that. Let's just take back that power and talk about money.
Yep. Let's do it. Well, I will be in touch, Julia. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.